I'm just trying to sort my camera out, Alistair.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
For
yeah.
some reason, it won't let me show my video. There, Nanny.
Uh, we've had recording in progress. So I'd just like to, let you know that if any, I hope you're all happy to be recorded, and you're looking forward to a good session. Now, Uh, So this is our event this time. I'm quite excited about it in that we've got some great speakers and a really interesting topic. I think that's relevant to so many organisations in Wales. Really, we're looking at how to meet the needs of Welsh speakers, through the services that you provide through career development. So now. The agenda for today, we're going to start with Ossian and Caris from the Welsh Language Commissioner's Office, who'll be talking about strategic priorities. Um, Careers Wales, Gyrfa Cymru will be talking about was meeting the standards, but it's also really how they ensure that the needs of Welsh speakers are met through their services. And there's a little element of how they make sure that staffing correct staffing's in place as well. And that will be the theme that HEIW will be picking up, looking at workforce development in the third presentation. There'll then be time for breakout discussions and we'll come back together, to form some conclusions at the end. So there isn't a formal break built into today's session. However, if you do need to just take a little natural break, perhaps you can manage that yourselves within the session. A little background to the forum just before we dive straight in is we've met 3 times a year since 2018, and many of you I know have been part of those meetings. Forums aimed at senior representatives and practitioners across the career development sector and focuses on these 3 distinct pillars: acting as a professional voice for the sector, sharing best practice and research, and enhancing quality professionalism and workforce development. And I'm sure you can see from the agenda how what we're doing fits in with all of that. So without further ado, really, I'd like to let's say croeso, croeso cynnes i Ossian a Caris from the Welsh Language Commissioner's Office. And if I can put it over to you, for your presentations. Diolch yn fawr.
Gwych. Diolch yn fawr iawn, Alistair. Bore da iawn i bawb. Good morning, everybody. Can I first of all thank Alistair for the kind invitation to join you this morning. Looking forward to giving you a little bit of background in terms of the Commissioner's work, but also sort of our priorities, strategic priorities over the next period, and how that perhaps links into the wider agenda around careers development, and how ultimately we work towards building capacity within the workforce in Wales and ensuring that we have bilingual workforce and workplaces increasingly over the next few years. So as Alistair mentioned, my name is Osian Llywelyn. I'm the Deputy Welsh Language Commissioner, but also my day-to-day job is as Director of Regulation, so overseeing our work in that particular context. I'm going to set out a little bit about our work more broadly as the Commissioner, and then I'll touch on our strategic priorities for the next period. Some of you may be familiar with that, but hopefully some of you may not be that familiar, and it's an opportunity for us to raise awareness of perhaps what the priorities for us as an office will be over the next 5 years, taking us towards the end of the decade and the end of Eva Griffith-Jones. Eva is the Welsh Language Commissioner. She has a 7-year period in post, so our strategic plan for the next 5 years will take her towards the the end of her term. But before I do that, I'd just like to set some context for you, and perhaps just touch on how we interpret and view our role at the Commissioner within the wider context, the wider policy context, as it were, of Cymraeg 2050. You'll be very familiar with that strategy, Welsh Government strategy, which aims not only to reach 1 million speakers, Welsh speakers by 2050, but also to double the percentage of people who use the language on a daily basis, and how we see our role as an organisation in contributing to that shared vision that we have here in Wales for the language. Now, 1 million Welsh speakers by 2050. If we look at the 2021 census, that recorded just over 500,000, 538,000 Welsh speakers, according to the last census. So we need to almost double that number in a relatively short period of time, just well, a quarter of a century, 25 years. I remember 2000, so we will be in 2050 before we know it. But in terms of that target, I think it's worth noting, particularly in this forum, how crucial the education system will be to meet that target. The pathway to the million is based on the assumption that 40% of pupils in Wales will receive Welsh medium education by 2050. Now, just to give you a little bit of context to that percentage, the figure is currently around 23% in the primary sector. That pathway also assumes that 50% of pupils attending English medium schools will leave school as confident Welsh speakers. Now, some of you may be aware of a legislation that was passed earlier this year, the Welsh Language and Education Wales Act of 2025. And what that legislation aims to do is to provide a statutory basis for those targets within Cymraeg 2050, but also to ensure that our young people, when they leave statutory education at the age of 16, are leaving as confident Welsh language speakers, and that is defined within the Common European Reference Framework for Languages, the CEFA, and that level is set at a B2 level. So that's the aim and the context of that legislation. So it's important to emphasise that we are planning here in Wales for significant growth in terms of the number of young people leaving the education sector able to speak Welsh. And obviously that's very relevant to what we'll be discussing in this session today. People tend to focus on that headline target, don't they, of 1 million speakers. But I think it's also important and that we don't lose sight of the other target of doubling the daily use of the language from 10% in 2015 to 20% by 2050. I think it's fair to say that both those targets are challenging, but arguably the target around usage is even more difficult. And I think the point I would like to make here is it's not just about creating speakers. We need to ensure that the language is alive and that individuals, when they leave the world of education, that they're able to maintain those language skills and that they can use the language in all aspects of life, including in workplaces. And Caris will touch on our work in that space shortly. So that's the challenge for us. How do we turn Welsh language speakers that we create through that education system into long-term users? If you can move to the next slide, Caris. Now, some of you will be very familiar with the Commissioner's role, its work, and what our main aim is. Our principal aim is set out in legislation, and that's to promote and facilitate the use of the Welsh language. Now, that's a pretty broad aim, and the Commissioner has a wide discretion to do anything that he or she she in the context of the current commissioner. Um, we have the discretion to do anything that we deem to be appropriate in order to work towards achieving that principal aim. And we have a number of ways, methods, approaches that we undertake to contribute to achieving that aim. First of all, our role as a regulator. There's no doubt that regulation and regulating Welsh language standards predominantly, but also working with non-devolved bodies under the Welsh Language Act of 1993 and maintaining compliance with the commitments in those Welsh language schemes. That work is obviously my responsibility in terms of our directorate, and that work is central to our office. We regulate nearly 140 public organisations currently under the Welsh language standards. That'll be closer to 180 by the end of next year, 2026, as the work of placing standards on housing associations across Wales begins in earnest. But regulation isn't the only area of work for us. We've got a team within the office that works with large businesses and the third sector. Obviously, those organisations are not subject to regulation. They're not required to comply with Welsh language standards or operate under Welsh language schemes. So we work with them on a voluntary basis with the ultimate aim of not only increasing the visibility of the Welsh language in terms of their dealings with the public, but also increasing the opportunities that people have to use the language when they engage with those businesses and charities. So I've mentioned the regulation side. There's also that promotion aspect that we work with on a voluntary basis. But we've also got a core team which are responsible for policy matters and trying to influence both policy developments but also legislative developments here in Wales. We've been working with government, trying to influence and strengthen where appropriate. I mentioned the Welsh Language and Education Act there. That's been a big piece of work here in Wales, and we've obviously been playing our part trying to influence and shape that legislation. We sit on the Mwy na Geiriau, More Than Just Words advisory board, and have done some considerable work in the dementia field in recent years also. As an organisation, we've got the responsibility for the standardisation of place names, and we lead on the collaborative work that takes place with the International Association of Language Commissioners. We're not the only language commissioner. There are a number of us across the globe, and we lead on the collaboration and the work that we do with our respective commissioners in different parts of the world. So as you can see there are a wide range of methods, interventions and approaches that we take at the Welsh Language Commissioner towards achieving that principal aim, as I mentioned, that is set out in the Welsh Language Wales measure of 2011. If you could go to the next slide, Caris. Diolch. So our vision as the Commissioner is a Wales where people can live their lives in Welsh. Now that means creating an environment where Welsh is present in all aspects of life, in the communities that people live in, at work, and when people wish to access public services. And that vision underpins many aspects of our work currently, but is also reflected in our strategic priorities over the next 5 years, but also some of our calls that we've recently made looking ahead to the 2026 Senedd elections. We've published our manifesto, and that includes a number of calls that include the need to strengthen the work around bilingual workforce planning, and conscious that that's on the agenda, to expand and increase the number of organisations and sectors that will be subject to Welsh language standards, but also to increase the opportunities for people to use the Welsh language in a wider set of contexts. So our strategic plan for the next 5 years has three strategic objectives. The first one is to increase and improve the quality of Welsh language services that are available to users. And in order for us to achieve that, we need to ensure that organisations have sufficient capacity within their workforce to deliver those bilingual services. We've also We also want to increase the opportunities, as I said, for people to use the language more widely within the communities they live in. We have a direct role there in terms of influencing local authorities and national parks. They are required to have 5-year promotion strategies, which set out the activities that they will undertake during that period within the areas that they serve in order for people to use the language. And also then finally, we will, as we are currently, we will continue to be that strong voice and an advocate for Welsh speakers, and we will protect the interests of Welsh speakers in the variety of contexts and our work more broadly. So 3 strategic objectives. If I go to the next slide, Caris. So as I said, 3 strategic objectives, but we've also got 3 special themes as part of our strategic plan for the next 5 years. And these themes will be central to our programme of work during that period. So those will be children and young people, the workplace, and health and social care. I'll just touch on maybe 2 of those, and then I'll pass on to Caris, who will talk a little bit more about our work in terms of workplaces and the workforce. Children and young people, I mentioned in a previous slide the legislative development this year, the introduction of the Welsh Language and Education Bill, and some of the aims of that legislation, most notably making sure that children, whatever medium of education they attend, whether that be Welsh medium, bilingual or English medium, that all of our young people, when they leave statutory education, leave as confident Welsh speakers. And as I mentioned, that is defined within the Common European Framework of Languages. And as I mentioned, the challenge here is, how do we make sure that our young people leave education as confident speakers? And that's a challenge not only for us at the Commissioner, but also to policymakers and other partners and stakeholders who work in this area. I'm thinking about the Coleg Cymraeg Cenedlaethol. I'm thinking about the National Centre for Learning Welsh. But there are other stakeholders who have an interest in this area too. So it's about working together on this agenda, ultimately to create those opportunities and spaces for our children and young people to maintain those skills that they develop through education and as they enter that world of work. Workplaces are a key location and a key space then, aren't they, for increasing the use of language, not only in the public sector that we work predominantly with, but across all sectors. We want to see businesses and charities provide those opportunities for people to use the Welsh, both formally and informally, in the workplace. And that's certainly a strategic area and a growth area, I think, where there will be significant work over the coming years from us as well as other partners. And health and social care then, as a special theme. Now we know, don't we, that the ability to use the Welsh language when receiving health and social care services is crucial. We talk about language choice in many contexts, but I think in this particular context, it's more about language need. And I'm conscious that that's the title of this session this morning, isn't it? It's about meeting the needs of Welsh language speakers, and this sector, both health and social care, is is crucial in that context, because people enter the health and social care sector very often in a position of weakness, and it's about making sure that we provide good quality care, and the language is an integral part of that, isn't it? We've got a lot of work going on in this sector. Not only our day-to-day work, making sure that health boards and NHS trusts comply with the statutory requirements that have been placed on them through the Welsh language standards, but also working with the sector more strategically. We work with the Mwy na Geiriau team in Welsh Government on the sector's 5-year plans that they have in place. They are statutorily required to have five-year plans, which set out how they will increase the capacity of their clinical workforce, and with the aim of increasing their capability and capacity to carry out clinical consultations through the medium of Welsh. And that's an important piece of work for us. We want to see real tangible progress being made in this area during the next 5 years, and working with the Mwy na Geiriau team in Welsh Government, but also other partners. I'm conscious that Nia is here from AGIC, working with a wide range of partners with that agenda in mind. So health and social care, children and young people. The third and final special theme is that of the workplace, but I will transfer now to Caris, who is who leads on the Commissioner's work in this area. So I'll transfer to Caris, who can talk a little bit about our programme of work and our priorities in this area. Diolch yn fawr iawn.
Diolch Osian. Bore da bawb. Nice cael bod yma. Thank you for the opportunity to be here this morning. So, as Osian mentioned, creating spaces for those young people, he mentioned, to use their Welsh is crucial. And where do we as adults spend most of our time, whether we like it or not, I guess, is at work, of course. So the workplace is clearly a crucial space for Cymraeg. And as we all know, frequent use of any language is absolutely essential for anyone wanting to maintain or develop their language skills. So that's for that reason, I think the workplace is the third area of strategic importance for us at the Commissioner. And as Osian said, this does apply to all sectors, not just the public organisations, and our team, the Hubby team, is dedicated to working with businesses and third sector organisations to develop their Welsh language offer to the public, but also to support staff to use their Cymraeg, and organisations showing a good, strong level of Welsh language provision can receive the Cynnig Cymraeg recognition from us at the Commissioner as well. So, of course, the Welsh language standards make a comprehensive provision for the way in which organisations should use the language, particularly in the services that they provide to the public. And as Osian said, the standards apply to around 140 organisations, so that's 140 workplaces. And this means that to effectively offer services in Welsh, they need staff members who feel confident and able to use their Welsh language. They need to ensure that they build a workplace and a workforce where the Welsh language is used effectively and consistently. So we aim to work closely with organisations to understand good practice, what's going on, the challenges that they might be facing, and work then to provide some opportunities to share those as case studies and so on, help them overcome some challenges, and of course encourage others to follow any good practice that we've identified. And we do have a conference coming up next week, I think, actually, in Wrexham, looking at sharing good practice, and I think that's been very well attended next week. Unfortunately, I'm not able to attend, but I'm sure it'll be a really good day. So our focus so far this year has been on helping organisations comply with this particular standard on the screen here, which states that they must develop a policy on using Welsh internally for the purpose of promoting and facilitating the use of the language. Now, I think it's fair to say that this has been a somewhat misunderstood, maybe underused standard over the years, but it really has great potential to develop workplaces into ones that really strengthen and grow the use of the Welsh language. What it does really is encourages you to look more at more than just compliance with the standards and the provision of services in Welsh, as crucial, of course, as that is, but also to consider how the workplace environment can support and foster the language skills of staff. It wants organisations to look at the framework and structures it has in place to enable the use of the Welsh language. So this can mean sort of the right technology and administration. It can also mean the attitudes of leaders, the example they show in their approach to the language and how they use their Cymraeg. And there is also a strong element of building staff confidence, of course, and providing support and opportunities for people to use their Welsh. And that's both in formal situations, in meetings, calls, presentations, or email, written reports, and so on, or informally, of course, chatting to colleagues and socialising in Welsh, which is more difficult in this kind of hybrid world. I'm at my dining room table here. I don't see anyone all day, so it can be quite tricky, can't it, to build those social relationships? But that's the challenge that we hope to be able to help them meet. So what we've done is create a series of policy models that organisations can take from our website and adapt to their needs. So they're literally Word documents, and there are 3 to choose from. And they're designed to encourage progress and push organisations to do more, really. So as you can see here, they're situated along a continuum, moving from foundation to proactive to innovative. And very simply, what you do is download the one that you feel is most suitable for your organisation's current level. And this will depend on a number of factors: size, resources, number of staff members who speak Welsh, demography, so on. Because, of course, within the 140 or so organisations that comply with the standards, there's a vast range there of in terms of ability and capacity with regards to the language. So organisations are then expected to adapt the policy to their own needs, and we've got documents with examples of objectives that they can copy and paste or adapt to populate the policy. The objectives are grouped into I should say the policies are split into 3 themes. So leadership, building confidence, and administrative infrastructure, to reflect what I just said. And then to go with the policy and to make sure that it is put into action, the organisation should create a detailed action plan. And what's important here, I think, is that we encourage organisations to be ambitious and not sort of rest on their oars, as it were. So if they're currently identifying that they're at foundation level, then they should try and include objectives from the proactive level to drive change over time. And it may well be that an organisation might feel that it's foundation in one of the themes, I don't know, say leadership, but it may feel that it's a bit stronger in building confidence or administrative infrastructure. So the policy models, though providing that framework, have the flexibility within them for an organisation to really reflect what's going on internally and create something meaningful and fit for purpose. So the policy models were launched last month, and we hope to see many organisations putting those resources into action and putting their policies together over the coming months. And we, since launching the models last month, we've committed to having a Welsh language in the workplace forum. We're going to try and do that every quarter. So the first one was held last month when we launched the policy models, and we hope that that will help maintain that conversation and provide that space for organisations to learn from each other and grow and develop and share ideas. So that was really well attended, and I think there's a lot of enthusiasm around the work, which is great to see. So now that the internal use policy models are ready, I had a few days of not quite knowing what to do with myself, and then I made a to-do list, and there's lots more work to be done in the field. So being able to support staff to use their Welsh requires knowing what their current ability is, and then identifying ways to support them. So, as Oshan's already touched on, knowing staff skills is also crucial for providing Welsh language services to the public. And of course, the standards already require organisations to assess and keep a record of staff skills. To make meaningful progress in the workplace, we need to ensure that organisations are collecting information about staff skills and that they're using that information then, using it to identify gaps and plan their bilingual workforce. And we are, of course, working within a wider context here, as Oshan's already set out so clearly at the start. But such of partners such as the National Centre for Learning Welsh are absolutely key in that they provide so many language courses for all levels of ability. So we want to make sure that organisations are linked up with them and that they're making full use of those services to develop staff skills. Our focus in the Commissioner is on the workplace itself and increasing opportunities to use Welsh. And ensuring that organisations plan appropriately and effectively. So that involves the internal use policy models, but it also is looking at the way that they assess and record language skills and what they do with those. For example, that an organisation assesses the language requirements for any vacancies and that they advertise those properly to try and make sure that they get someone in the role with the necessary Welsh language skills to provide those services. These are all requirements from the standards, but I think that it's fair to say that that compliance with them and effective compliance with them varies across organisations and across sectors. So we want to be able to try and get more consistency and strengthen the practices where we can. As Oshan mentioned, across Wales, we're now preparing for the new Cefr, which is being adapted for Welsh. And the timetable for implementation is going to take a couple of years, but this will give a consistent framework for organisations to assess and record skills, and it'll also be used throughout the education sector. So it will really help paint a clearer picture of Welsh language skills and help with bilingual workforce planning. And we want organisations to really increase their efforts in assessing and recording staff skills so that that baseline of ability exists. And as mentioned, we're working closely with the health sector on this to develop the plans to increase the number of clinical consultations they provide in Welsh, for example. So knowing who speaks Welsh and where they are in an organisation is so important for the effective delivery of services. And it's also key for increasing the general use of Welsh, as I mentioned, that's the focus of the internal use policies. And being able to demonstrate that your organisation considers the Welsh language meaningfully and that you support your staff to use and develop their skills can also help with recruitment and being able to target Welsh speakers to come and work at your organisation as one that values the Welsh language. So I'm conscious of time, so I'm going to stop there, Alistair, because I know that you wanted to keep it to half an hour. But we are both, of course, more than happy to answer any questions that anyone may have.
Oh, that's great. Diolch yn fawr iawn, Ossian a Caris. And I know that there's so much there that people will want to get back to you on. And you spoke about maintaining a conversation. Now, I'm just thinking, I feel like the Grinch today, trying to save time. So I wonder if people have got questions, if you could add them to chat, and then maybe, maybe continue that conversation within chat. And Ossiana Caris, if you'd be happy to put an email or contact address, that if people, want, to continue the conversation beyond the meeting as well, that they're able to do that. There will be time at the end of the presentations where we'll have breakouts, which I hope you're able to join. And then there'll also be a final session. So there will be a time to answer questions verbally as well at that point. But does that work for you?
Yes,
Yeah, that's
absolutely,
fine.
Alistair.
Just pop my email in the
More,
chat there, so if anybody's got any questions.
more than happy to answer any questions in the chat or otherwise.
Diolch.
Diolch yn fawr iawn.
And there was so much there. It was really interesting about the policy models. For example, it'll be fascinating to see how that goes in the coming months as well. Now, we're moving on to our next speakers from Gyrfa Cymru, Curious Wales, who are Rhian Lloyd Thomas and Ffion Jones. Now, you mentioned about Objective 1 or Amcan 1, about increasing and improving the quality of services available in Welsh, ensuring more people are aware of those services and use them regularly. So I know that will be a feature of what Rhian and Ffion talk about, but I think they might also bleed a little into Objective 2 and 3, just because those things are also so crucial to meet Objective 1, I think. So again, without further ado, then over to Ffion and Rhian, and thank you.
Bore da.
Bore da.
Can I just check you can see? I think I've shared the screen.
Yes.
Yes.
Big champion.
I'm not used to Zoom. We are a Teams organisation. Iawn. Wel, bore da. Diolch yn fawr am y cyfle ddod i siarad efo chi bore yma. Rhian Lloyd Thomas ydw i. Dwi yn rheoli gwaith cynghorwyr gyrfa mewn ysgolion ar draws y gogledd. Na i Ffion gyflwyno ei hun yn munud. I'm Rhian Lloyd Thomas. I am an Operations Development Manager for Careers Wales, which means that I manage all the work that careers advisors do across the 6 counties in the north of Wales. So I'll hand over to Ffion quickly so she can just introduce herself.
Bore da, Ffion Jones ydw i o'r gogledd, ond yn rheoli y tîm gwybodaeth marchnad lafur. I'm the LMI team manager in Careers Wales, which is part of the wider information and digital and communications team. Diolch.
Ffion. Dwi'n dallt bod yna siaradwyr Cymraeg yma heddiw, mae Alistair wedi gadael ni wybod o flaen llaw, ac felly'n amlwg, os oes gennych chi sylwadau neu unrhyw gwestiynau ydych chi eisiau gofyn drwy gyfrwng y Gymraeg, croeso chi wneud, a fydd Ffion a fi'n ddigon hapus ateb nhw. So I'm aware that there are some Welsh speakers here today, so if anybody wants to make a comment or ask a question in Welsh, you're more than welcome to, and Ffion and I are more than happy to answer. So I'll continue now in Saesneg, but yn amlwg os ydych chi eisiau gofyn rhywbeth, gnewch. So Ffion and I will both be presenting to you this morning, doing a bit of a double act. I'm going to start by just providing a rough overview of how things work within the company, and then Ffion will give you some information relating to LMI and the theme of information in general. I'll take you through some of the highlights of how we work within the company. There is far more going on than what I'll have time to speak about this morning. So I'm going to try and focus on the sort of the main things. And these will include our strategy and our values. There'll be some examples from Ffion about how some of the ways that we work. I'll go through some of our expectations of our staff. I'll touch on Cymraeg 2050, and then, as Alistair explained, there will be an opportunity to ask questions at the end. So hopefully you're seeing my next slide now. So in terms of our vision, our current vision, Brighter Futures, is coming to the end of its 5 years. It is being extended by 1 year. So we are looking at our next vision and currently developing what our strategy will be. But obviously, in terms of the Welsh language, the themes will be quite similar. So our current vision, and probably the next one, well, it will be the next one, reflects on the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act, and it reflects the company's commitment to the support of the 7 wellbeing principles in Wales. One of those principles is to support a Wales of vibrant culture and thriving Welsh language through the ways that we work in Wales. So one of our main goals in our strategic vision, Goal 1, is all about the delivery of a bilingual service to customers. So I'm going to hand over to Fia now to look through our values.
Diolch, Ian. Dyma'n gwerthoedd egwyddorion a safannau pan da ni'n darparu gwybodaeth ar ein gwefan a gwybodaeth os da ni roi darn o bapur i rywun. So these are our values and principles and standards, mainly when we're preparing information on our website, but it's true with any piece of paper that we would be sharing with people. So our web-based products and information are developed in a continuous improvement cycle, as many organisations work, where you review your content, you have formal evaluation, customer feedback, you look at the priorities, and we do a lot of research and testing with customer engagement, which is best practice. And then we do have in-depth project management system. And being inclusive and accessible as part of these standards means everything we do is in both languages, but also includes the standards and legal implications of the Web Content and Accessibility Guidelines, WCAG. So most people in the public sector will be following these guidelines, and you will see from government and public sector organisations a pretty standard way of presenting information clearly. And these are international standards to ensure that our digital services, including our website, do meet these, which means it's clear, concise, consistent, understandable writing style. And we assess readability of all our content. And in the UK, by the way, that readability is between ages 9 and 11. So whenever we present information, that is, a real challenge for us. And I'll come into this a bit later on in the presentation, that readability testing and those kind of digital tools don't exist for the Welsh language, and that's quite challenging for us. So there are various tools available off the shelf that we can buy and use in Word, like Word Editor, where we can test our readability in the English language, but not in the Welsh language. So that's up to us to be working with our professional translators and to be making our own edits to get that readability right in the Welsh language as well. We offer alternative ways for people to getting in touch, and we also include accessibility for people with hearing and sight impairments. And, Welsh language standards isn't the only thing we work towards. They are these accessibility standards where we do have internal and external audits to ensure the quality and consistency of our digital services. Diolch, Ian.
Diolch yn fawr. So o ran y disgwyliadau sydd gennym ni on staff, so in terms of the expectations that we have of our own staff, as I say, this isn't everything. This is just a flavour of what we would expect. So, and I think this touches a little bit on Osian's point earlier about increasing the day-to-day use of Welsh. So that's quite a focus within the company, of starting conversations, cychwyn yn Gymraeg, dechrau bob sgwrs yn Gymraeg, so to start every conversation through the medium of Welsh. So delivery staff are expected to greet customers in Welsh initially. So whether that's on the phone or face-to-face through the door. The website obviously is completely bilingual. So however the customer would expect to contact us, that first port of call, our expectation is that would be bilingual. We also then ask customers what their preferred language is, so that we make sure that we are conversing in the language of their choice. I think one of the most important things is that we make it crystal clear to our customers that any service that they require from us is available for them in both languages and in their choice language. So in education, in year 10, we ask all customers in Wales who are in year 10, we offer them the opportunity to complete a survey called Gwirio Gyrfa, career check, and in that survey we ask them what is their language preference. We then record that on the customer record on our CRM. It's not a compulsory question on the survey due to GDPR regulations, but and not every single young person in Wales completes that survey. It is completed in almost every school. I think there's probably 2 schools where it's not done. But we do have this information relating to over 28,000 young people in Wales every year, which is quite a significant data set, really. And then the careers advisor then in the school is obliged to provide the service in the customer's preferred language. And obviously that's for communication verbally and in writing. We also proactively use the Welsh language in the workplace. For example, as I said, in-house, I think in COVID there was some unconscious bias between Teams and Zoom, wasn't there? You know, if you're in one camp, you complained about the other. If you like me today, having to use Zoom. But when we do use Teams, we do have a background, a company background, which has little speech bubbles on it that shows whether somebody is learning Welsh or is a Welsh speaker. And we have the lanyards, which I'm modelling for you this morning. I don't know if you can see, but that also tells the customer whether we are learning Welsh or whether we are a Welsh speaker. And of course that works in-house as well. If you come across a member of staff you don't know, then you can use the most appropriate language to speak with them. So we do share information with customers about the value of Welsh language skills and the importance of these skills in the labour market. We do provide sessions in schools on Welsh in the workplace, and we try and present a bilingual image in everything that we do. Obviously, in terms of recruitment, it's important that we have staff who can deliver the service bilingually. However, one of our challenges is, and Alistair will know this, qualified careers advisors don't grow on trees in any language. So we do need to train our own. It takes approximately 2 years to train a careers advisor. They can't walk in off the street and become a careers advisor. They do have to go through a long training process. So whereas we recruit Welsh speakers, it is quite challenging to get them to a position where they can deliver effectively in any language, but particularly then that puts pressure on Welsh speaking colleagues because they are covering then multiple schools. And then I'm handing back over to Fiona now.
Diolch. Dwi'n mynd i fynd â chi drwy chydig o enghreifftiau o'r gwaith dwyieithog sydd gyda ni ar yn gwefan. So our website promotes the use of the Welsh language, but also provides a Welsh identity in our products. and its importance to the labour market of Wales. And we also provide information which is relevant and unique to Wales as much as possible, and not representing the UK as a whole. So we have got references to specific training, specific training providers, if there are unique qualifications for Wales, organisations with their Welsh branding, images, language, etc. So I'll show you some examples of these in practice in the next slide, if I can have that one, Rhian. Now we've got some limitation on time, so I'm not going to click into all of these, but as an example, we have got nearly 800 job information profiles on our website, and these are individual information leaflets, if you like, with different jobs. So how to become a whatever, and we've got nearly 800 of those, and just one of those examples, I've just put police officer there, and I could have chosen many. So in our image of a police officer in job information, you will see the police officer wearing the Welsh police uniform with Heddlu written on there, and we will have specific reference to how to become a police officer in Wales, with all the Welsh links to the Welsh organisations. And also there will be references in each job information whether the Welsh language as a skill is useful. And we are saying it is a useful skill in 800 of those job information profiles. We are not differentiating. It's in every single one of those profiles. Another good practice example, we had a new page published earlier this year. It's called Welsh Language, a Valuable Skill for Work. And since June 2025 up to the end of August, that page has had 245 views. So that's going beyond promotion. It is telling people some of the statistics within the Welsh language as well. So if anyone was making a search about Welsh language skills at work, hopefully they would land on one of our pages promoting the Welsh language. We also analyse the traffic and usage of our information on the website by using Google Analytics, GA4, and we can see how many customers visit our website, and we do have an annual website report. So the latest report has just been published for the year 2024-5. And in a typical year, these are typical statistics, the website had just under 400,000 users visiting our site in 2024-5. Customers in education are about 65% of our users. So a high number of those thousands would be young people in education. And the number of sessions that these users had, over 700,000. So in total, across all the uses of our website, within 1 year, we've got about 3.9 million people who use some part of the Careers Wales website. Job information is the most popular application on our site, and that had about 210 sessions. And as I said, you know, it's naturally promoting Welsh identity and bilingualism. The top 20 of those job information profiles, we do have a look at what customers look at, and we do come up with, you know, top 20 jobs. And they haven't changed much in the last 4 years since we've been using Google Analytics. But I can think of a time when I was a careers advisor 30 years ago, and those job profiles that young people come up with are very similar. You know, so that is a challenge for us as a nation and in partnerships in terms of, you know, extending horizons of young people having these quite narrow career ideas and trying to think out of the box. We're also seeing different trends in the way that people now access our website and careers information in general. So the popular browsers like Google and Bing, now if you can select an AI mode in searches. And if you select the AI mode in searches, sometimes you will not click into that information, which will affect our Google Analytics, because an AI response will give you the whole information on your screen, which negates the need for you to launch into those links. And that's going to be quite a challenge for us and any other organization here with websites where you do monitor usage. In that, the Google Analytics at the moment doesn't capture that, and it's difficult to evidence. So we are, starting to see behavioural changes with the advent of AI, which we're keeping a close eye on. One of the things that we can see with Google Analytics is the use of Welsh language and who clicks into the Welsh pages. And at the moment in this year, and it has been for the last 4-year trend, it's about 2% of the total usage click onto our Welsh version of information on the site. Okay, can I have a next slide, please, Rhian? I was very pleased to hear that Carys and Osian mentioned some of the things that I'm going to mention to you now in terms of our challenges. And one of the things is the availability and use of official statistics. So research, data and evidence is integral to our role in the information and LMI team in particular. We have to present staff and our customers with the most credible and trusted information. And quite often we find a shortage of up-to-date official statistics for Wales as a nation compared to the UK and England and Scotland, for example. This is partly due to lower population number in Wales compared to England and Scotland and UK as a whole. And official statistics are often based on a sample of the population. Therefore, if the whole population is low, the sample size becomes even lower, which often results in a number that can't be published because it falls down some tolerance threshold, and therefore it's not reliable statistics. Another example of statistical challenges is when the LMI team support our internal marketing team, researching into a campaign, for example. And we are now supporting our marketing team with a campaign coming up in the next few months about the Welsh language at work. However, we are finding that the most impactful statistics available to us now is from the last census of 2021, which is older than we would like to use. In our standards, we don't recommend the use of statistics that are older than 3 years old in a labour market information context, because things change very quickly. We'd like more official statistics and reports to be available on how the Welsh language is valued and used by employers and in the workplace. And there was a really useful report in 2019 called Defnydd o'r Gymraeg yn y Gweithle, Arolwg Iaith, and that was looking at the Welsh language used in different sectors. And unfortunately, we haven't had an update since then because there was a wealth of information there. Another challenge is how employers post their job vacancies, and Carys mentioned this earlier. Many vacancies note that Welsh language is either essential or desirable, but this isn't consistent, as Carys mentioned. And also they don't consistently promote the added value of Welsh language as a skill and need, as you said earlier, Osian, in certain roles, such as health and care in particular. And we are promoting that in our, if you clicked into our job information in nursing and care, we are trying to promote, the what is seemingly small added value of being able to say bore da neu dych chi isio panad, sut ydych chi, lle mae yn brifo, all those things are really crucial phrases in certain jobs. Now, data from our data modelling company that we use called Lightcast shows that for the last 6 months, between April and October this year, the total number of vacancies posted online in Wales was just over 372,000. So that's how many online vacancies were recorded in Wales. 20% of those, about just over 5%, mentioned Welsh language skills or qualifications in the vacancy, whether that's desirable or essential. And the top 5 vacancies recorded online asking for Welsh, either desirable or essential, were nursing, teaching, healthcare, social care, and cleaners and domestic helps. So, we are able to have a lot of analytics by using Lightcast and drilling into some of those Welsh language. So yes, those are some of our challenges, and I did mention earlier, some of those digital tools like the word editor being available in Welsh to meet other standards, which are accessibility and readability. A development in that field would be great for us. Diolch, Ian.
Lovely, diolch yn fawr. So, Careers Wales, going back to 2050, Cymraeg 2050, which has been mentioned a number of times this morning, obviously. We have made a commitment to support the Welsh Government's Cymraeg 2050 vision through our bilingual service delivery and through ensuring young people and adults are fully aware of the opportunities that Welsh language skills offer to future career choices. So, some of the things that we are doing within the company, we, as I said earlier, we offer Welsh in the Workplace workshops to schools to highlight the importance of the Welsh language skills for employers. We've had a number of these workshops going on across Wales. They're very well received. They involve employers in the local area going into schools to tell basically young people, we need Welsh speakers in our industry, and when we're looking for new recruits, we are looking for Welsh speakers. In one-to-one careers guidance interviews, careers advisors will highlight how being bilingual or having Welsh language skills enhances their employment prospects in all areas of work, really, and in all communities in Wales. But obviously there are some jobs where there are specific shortages, careers advisors being one, to be honest. Social work is another one. We also now have a parent newsletter which is sent out. We have 4 versions of our parent newsletter. We have a English and Welsh mainstream version, and we have an English and Welsh ALN version, and that's sent out to school, and schools then forward the information on to parents. And what we found from the parents newsletter is that it actually drives traffic, and it's interesting. It picks up a little bit on what Fiona was saying about the AI option in Google, because it links directly into our website. It sort of drives traffic to those parent pages. And again, picking up on one of Fion's points about having a campaign about the Welsh language, we are looking in. We have 3 newsletters a year, one each school term, and the next one in the spring term will have a feature on the Welsh language, and we're hoping that will drive some traffic to the pages on the website that highlight the importance of the language. I've talked about some of the way that we offer the service to customers in their preferred language. We also record staff's language abilities and keep a record of that on the HR system, so that we know what people's language, what the level of their Welsh language is, what they're comfortable in doing, and we offer Welsh courses to staff. So we've had a number of staff attend Nantgwrtheuyn for the intensive course, and we also have an increasing number of staff who are attending Welsh courses in their own time. Staff can choose to receive their internal communication from HR or from their line manager, their appraisal system in the language of their preferred language. So that's an offer that's made across the board. And staff are encouraged to speak and or practice their Welsh language skills whenever possible. We have opportunities for staff to meet virtually for a paned a sgwrs to practice their skills. We do have some informal activities going on as well, where staff buddy up with, so a learner will buddy up with a fluent Welsh speaker, and they'll meet and just sort of have a very informal conversations through the medium of Welsh to support the learner to improve. We take part in some promotional activities as well. So recently we had the CDI campaign that we were involved in. Our chief exec came into the office and had a conversation through the medium of Welsh, and we had a sort of a Welsh theme to the morning, if you like. We also attend the Eisteddfod every year, and we try and encourage our Welsh learners, as well as our fluent Welsh speakers, to be on the stand at the Eisteddfod and to visit the Maes y Dysgwyr. There was an example this year where Dr. Cymraeg was doing a clinic on Maes y Dysgwyr, and one of our learners went over and had a conversation, and he was given, I don't know if any of you know, but Dr. Cymraeg was doing prescriptions. So the member of staff was able to say, oh, this is what I struggle with, and he wrote him a prescription of how to overcome his issue, his particular issue at that time. And one thing I have picked up from LinkedIn recently, I don't often look at LinkedIn, but this caught my eye. And I'm sure Osian and Caris will know far more about this, and I don't pretend to know anything about the social housing sector in Wales. But what was quoted in LinkedIn was, new Welsh language regulations are coming in to the social housing sector soon. Welsh speakers will be in high demand. And that was from one employer that was on LinkedIn. And that's the sort of snippet of information that careers advisors try and pick up on and share with their customers. So that draws to a close. I don't think we've gone too much over, have we, Alistair?
No, we started at 11:38, so you've hit it.
So if there are questions, I'll let Alistair take the management of those.
Well, thank you, diolch yn fawr. I know, having worked for you for many years in the past, that's just a snippet of what you're doing. And I know when we met that you talked about, well, this really just comes naturally. You're wanting to, it comes naturally to make sure that everything that's done meets the needs of Welsh speakers as well as English speakers, and so that was fascinating. I think what we're going to what we'll probably do is we'll have the last 20 minutes for open questions, rather than breakout rooms. So if there are particular challenges things that have either come out from the talks, or if there are particular challenges that you're facing, you'd like some feedback on, then we'll use that final 20 minutes as an open forum. And I hope that works for everyone. So, diolch eto. So, and it's always that thing. Last but by no means least is our Dr. Nia Cole-Jones and Hugh Owen from HEIW, Health Improvement Health Education Improvement Wales, and they're going to similar be talking about challenges of workforce and staff development, and some of the tools that they have to encourage that. But again, they will be giving you little snippets as well of other ways in which they are meeting the needs of Welsh speakers. So diolch, and so thank you, Rian and Fion, and over to you now, Nia and Hugh.
Bore da, diolch yn fawr iawn. Hugh, wyt ti eisiau rannu'n sleidiau ni, os gallu di, os gweli di
O,
fod yn dda?
diolch. Ar Zoom. Nawr ti'n gofyn i fi. Dreau
Neu
ngorau.
na?
Cariad di mlaen y dreau ngorau.
OK, iawn. Felly bore da bawb, Nia Cole Jones dwi a fi yw pennaeth mwy na geiriau yn addysg a gwella iechyd Cymru. Mae'n nghydweithiwr i Hugh Owen yma hefyd a byddai'n cyflwyno ei hun I chi maes o law. So I'm Nia Cole Jones, I'm the head of More Than Just Words at Health Education Improvement Wales, and I'm joined by my colleague Hugh Owen, who will introduce himself to you shortly. Mae'r siaradwyr eraill wedi amlinellu'r cyd-destun polisi, felly dwi ddim yn mynd I ailadrodd fy hun. So the other speakers have very kindly outlined the policy context when it comes to More Than Just Words, Cymraeg 2050 and so on. So we won't repeat ourselves with that. But what we'd like to do is give you a brief overview of what Health Education Improvement Wales does, and perhaps signpost you to some resources that we have that you might find useful. Hugh, do I think that perhaps I need to share my screen?
I think if
Is
you
that
can share
okay?
your screen, that might be better, because as you know, I'm in a strange place here, in more ways than one.
Yes. Which is not necessarily a euphemism at all. It is
No, not a
the fact that
euphemism.
Hugh is in an event that we have in Wrexham currently. Felly, ydych chi'n gallu gweld y sgrin nawr? Can you see my screen? You should be seeing a PowerPoint.
Not yet, but
How
on
interesting.
the way.
Anything now?
Not yet. Do you want me to try sharing
Yeah,
this?
Alistair, if you wouldn't mind then, please, because you have a copy of our slides, don't you?
I'm trying to share it as well, and it won't come up for me either. So.
Is that work? Oh, I haven't clicked share. There we are.
Yeah, there we go.
You got it.
Gwych.
Hyfryd, diolch yn fawr iawn. If you wouldn't mind moving on to the next slide, Alistair, diolch yn fawr iawn. I promise you all that I had clicked share. Felly symud ymlaen i'r ail slide. Who are we at Health Education Improvement Wales, and what do we do? Because we do appreciate that not everybody is familiar with our work. Ni yw'r corff gweithlu strategol ar gyfer y gwasanaeth iechyd, so we are the strategic workforce body for NHS Wales. As a special health authority, we have a unique role to anticipate workforce needs, to identify gaps, and shape the future of the health service. Our core responsibility is to ensure the sustainable supply of healthcare professionals for NHS Wales, with the Welsh language embedded at everything we do, right from the start as a golden thread, and More Than Just Words is an essential part of our remit. Although we're relatively small compared to other health boards with a budget of about 380 million and 600 staff, which is quite small compared to the others, our impact is significant, and around half of our workforce also have another role, for example, a clinical role or a role in health education improvement in faculties and universities and so on. So a part of what we do is to ensure a steady pipeline of registered healthcare professionals across NHS Wales. We oversee education and training both before and after registration, so supporting individuals as they enter the workplace and as they progress throughout their careers. We have around 57 agreements in contracts through universities, supporting around 8,000 students on our commissioned courses. And attracting people from school leavers to career changes is a vital part of our mission. And to open people's eyes to the variety of careers within the NHS, from art therapy to estate management, there's over 500 careers available. The workforce planning is part of our remit. We need to identify future workforce trends, needs and potential gaps. For example, through our nursing development plan, our allied health professionals plan, which all embody the more than just words strategies as a part of those. We also have a wide range of professional resources from training and quality assurance through our digital learning platforms, Gwella and T-Dysgu. As we've said, more than just words is essential, from our strategic workforce planning to day-to-day operations for the benefit of staff and service users. But the main aim, as Osian said earlier, is to reach patients and to be able to meet the language need of patients, because we acknowledge how important it is for people to have those services through the medium of Welsh, and it improves clinical outcomes. So how do we channel this into attracting Welsh speakers into NHS careers? And how do we promote the Welsh language within those careers? Here we'll go into a little more detail. Felly, next slide. Diolch, Alistair.
Yeah. Diolch, Nia. Bore da chi gyd. A fel wedodd Nia, if it's a bit echoey, I'm in a myopic centre in St Asaph. For anybody who wants to know, that's where I am. And we've actually got an undergraduate event going on here where we're supporting many of our undergraduates, because that indeed, as Nia touched upon, is one of the biggest challenges we've got. We are the largest employer in Wales, there's no doubt about that. We've got almost 100,000 people working for us. The people here who are far more versed in careers than I am, and so we'll know what sort of turnover, annual turnover, that means in the staff, with people retiring, people leaving. We've got to have a huge supply of people coming in to our organisation. So that's some of the challenges for us. And also, obviously, for us, for a number of very good logical reasons. We want to attract more Welsh speakers. Because we know that being able to offer certain patients a service through the medium of Welsh, being able to respond to them through the medium of Welsh, actually saves lives. Now, normally I go and starting waxing lyrical about all these different stories at this stage of lives that have been saved. Old people, children, people with mental health issues, because people have been able to respond to them through the medium of Welsh. From a careers perspective, what that means to us is that we need to try and maximise. And this is a message we've heard already from colleagues this morning, both from the Welsh Language Commissioner and from Careers Wales. We need to maximise those latent Welsh abilities that anybody who's been through the education system in Wales has got. So, 9,000 undergraduate places a year we commission. That's probably our first challenge, is how do we get people from Welsh schools to think about careers in the health service in Wales? Trigyrfa is something we came up with 5 or 6 years ago now. It's Careersville in English, Trigyrfa in Welsh. Again, one of those wonderful things that was developed bilingually. And so it wasn't a translation of one from the other. It was developed bilingually. There are mirror websites. And so although the emphasis is the same in both, it's about attracting people with careers into the NHS, and it's about attracting people into our undergraduate university courses. The actual content is different, because you've got some courses at some universities that are delivered predominantly through the medium of Welsh, and therefore our targeting for that is entirely different if we're targeting maybe people into courses where they're studying in English. So Trigyrfa is a website, is a resource that we use predominantly to link up between the universities and the schools. It's a work in progress. It's something that we're continually working upon, but it's a huge part of the jigsaw that we have in terms of attracting people into the NHS in Wales. Obviously, the fact that there's a Welsh language, there's a Cymraeg, lots of people, practitioners, clinical practitioners, talking about how them using it, be able to use Welsh, or even just recognising the fact that some patients need a Welsh language service has saved lives. And so it's stressing then to young people thinking of career choices, well, we siarad Cymraeg, I speak a bit of Welsh. Actually, that could be really handy in certain areas. Not just anymore the traditional areas. Because although percentage-wise, North and West Wales still has the majority, percentage-wise, of Welsh speakers in there, increasingly we're seeing, again, we're back to the last census, we're seeing the numbers in our cities, the gross numbers of Welsh speakers growing. And you need one old lady, and I won't speak about my mother, but I did sort of mention her there, didn't I? Or one child who's not confident in English to present in Cardiff or Newport or Neville Hall in Abergavenny. And if the clinician dealing with them is not aware of the fact that they're speaking Welsh, they're not going to be able to give them the treatment that they need. So that's what we're trying to aim at with Tregerfa and moving people and making them aware. Could we go to the next slide? But we've started now even earlier. So Tregerfa might be aimed predominantly at people in secondary schools pushing them to universities. But we commissioned something about 3 years ago called Surgery Sgilia. Surgery Sgilia is aimed at primary schools. It's a well-tested method. We've used it in a number of contexts before to attract people into particular careers and towards particular sports and pastimes and everything. But Surgery Sgilia is a concept commissioned by HIW, realised by Geraint Scott, the gentleman in the middle. I say the gentleman in the middle because Osian's the only other gentleman. You've met him and you know which one he is. And then you've got Nia and you've got Eva Griffith-Jones. So Geraint is the one that you don't know. Geraint, wonderful man, works at Neir in Bevan. He developed Surgery Sgilia for us. And what Surgery Sgilia is a number of little learning units aimed at primary schools based on the national curriculum. What did somebody use? Synergistic was the word. I haven't heard that word for a few years. Somebody used synergistic earlier and said Surgery Sgilia is synergistic because what we're doing is we're giving teachers a lesson on a plate. It's based on the national curriculum. It ticks a lot of boxes for them. But what they're doing through delivering Surgery Sgilia is building up an enthusiasm for careers in the health service, whether it be paramedics or nurses or any one of the other 500 job designations. It can be porters, it can be receptionists, it can be all sorts. And of course, all of these in their own way need certain amount of Welsh language skills. Now, it might be in some instances with a receptionist that especially in a Welsh area, that being able to speak Welsh has a huge difference to people. But it might be others with a porter, maybe just one porter in and I'll say Neville Hall, might have a Welsh-speaking patient one day. Being able to just say, bore da, shwmai, shwt I chi, to her, can make a world of difference to that patient. So it's emphasising, it's firing up young kids' imaginations about careers in the health service, but also about the importance of being able to use Welsh in a career in the health service. So that's Surgery Sgilia and Tregerfa. Those are two tools that we have that we use to attract people in, long-term and maybe shorter-term, more tactical. Now, as I say, both of these things are ideas that we've borrowed from elsewhere. So I know that there are people here today that might think, oh, that's quite a good idea. Have a chat with us and we can have a think about how we can help you to develop those things as well. And then finally, if we can move on to the next slide, is we sort of brought all of this together. And a year or so ago, and thanks again to Osian and the Commissioner's Office for helping us to launch and promote this. It's a Welsh language services planning tool. Again, aimed mainly at the health service, but you'll see as we go through it, there's a read across to virtually anything else again. So please, please, please talk to Nia, myself, and through Alistair following the event. If there's anything here that resonates and you'd like to try and copy it or something, then we're more than happy to share this with you. So it's one thing having a plan, and we've got to have plans. The Welsh language legislation means we've all got to have plans. But the reason we've got to have plans is because without a plan, we won't be able to do a lot of things. So hopefully what this resource is, it's a mixture of, yes, it gives you a plan. It ticks a lot of boxes in terms of fulfilling certain Welsh language standards and certain corporate standards and your IMTP standards, which is our planning process in the NHS and everything. But more importantly, when you drill down and almost you turn this thing 180 degrees and go from the back end first, it really does allow you to properly introduce Welsh language services where they're needed in your organisations. So let's have a look at the next slide.
Apology.
Oh, then. That's interesting. So I have shared something after all. There's a legal background to all of this. There's a strategic and legal background to all of this. Let's have a look at some of these things very quickly. If we can, yes. So we've got the Welsh language standards. We've said standard 110 is the key thing, which asks all health organisations to have a plan. Any organisation coming with standards needs a plan. any organization full stop operating as really needs a plan. Let's have a look at the next point. Mwy na geiriau, again, there's been quite a bit of mention of this morning. It's the third iteration of a Welsh Government initiative to ensure that in health and social services that we're maximising our ability to respond to Welsh language needs. So have a look at the final one. And there is our own workforce strategy, of which this particular resource is an emanation of it, looks specifically at Welsh language things. Let's go on to the next slide. So how do we go towards the development of a strategic plan? We need to think about our workforce and our population. We need to match the needs of the population to the workforce. Again, if you're planning in Penllyn, in the Llyn Peninsula, the needs are going to be greater, but the supply is going to be greater. If you're planning in Abergavenny, the need statistically might be less, but the supply is going to be less. So it really is, it's a matter of thinking of how do I match the one up to the other? You can't always match the one up to the other. And half of the art of workforce planning for the Welsh language is to say, okay, fine, maybe I can't directly offer a Welsh language service every time, but indirectly, I've got to know where to turn to do it. So what resources do you have? It's recognizing those resources that you have. It might be human resources. It might be people who can speak Welsh, but that's why we need to know the levels of the Welsh. That's why the CEFR initiative is so important, in that we can actually use these new classifications so that we can identify quite correctly what the language level skills are of people within our organizations. And then once we've thought about all of this, then we need to move forward into offering the service. Let's have these up. So there we are. We need to design, we need to develop, and it needs to happen. So next slide. But how? That's all right. No. How many plans do you need? I think the legislation asks for one plan per organisation. But this is where I'm saying you need to turn this 180 degrees. And by turning it 180 degrees, I'm giving you all something you can start off doing this afternoon. Because you can look at one service delivery unit, a critical service delivery unit. In the health service, we'd say, yeah, maybe a paediatric ward where you're dealing with kids who are going to be speaking Welsh, or a geriatric ward where you're dealing, or a mental health ward. Those would be the obvious areas for us. Think about your own organizations. Think about the organizations you're working with. Where are the critical places there? And again, I think Lisa's still on the call. I worked with Lisa at Merthyr Council for years. And Lisa would know, many was the time I was called down to the reception where there'd be somebody in there, usually a confused old person who was confused by a piece of paper they'd got and they didn't quite understand the basic bit we've already made, and they're only comfortable speaking in Welsh. And so therefore, almost by default, we got a plan in Merthyr which worked, which is if a Welsh speaker comes in who can't speak English and there's no Welsh speaker available on reception, call Hugh, he'll come down and he'll sort it. That's perfectly fine. What's wrong with that? So you don't have to have Welsh speakers on hand the whole time, but you need to know where to turn to. So that's something you can do this afternoon. Look at a reception area, and you're asking how you're going to do it, who's going to do it. So if you've got receptionists, you can rota them onto the Welsh speaker. If there's not, they need to know where in the back office they can turn to go and find a Welsh speaker to come and deal with somebody face to face. And as I say, this is something you can do this afternoon. If you've got a reception area, work through this and think, okay, if a Welsh speaker comes in, how do we respond to it? How is it going to work? Let's have a look at the next question. How much time am I going to need to do this? Well, actually, you could actually, and I'm sure one or two of you have been thinking about this in the last couple of minutes, you could come out with quite an effective plan in your head, write it down in 10 minutes. It doesn't need to be a massive strategic piece of work. It can be a small, tactical, quick piece of work. But if you're going to do it properly across the organization, you probably do need to spend quite a bit of time going through it. So you need to allocate the right amount of resource to get this done. Let's have a look at the next one, final one. Is there a template? Is there a template? Yes, there are templates, and yes, we can give you templates, but the best template in all of this is the template that you develop yourself for your own organization. Let's have a look at the next slide. I think we're near the end. I think we are at the end. That's what you need to do. And as I say, there's something Oh, no, it's not. There is. So the question that needs to be asked, the first question is, do you speak Welsh? Now, anybody can do that. If there's an issue with communication, anybody can say, do you speak Welsh? They don't even have to go any further than that. But they could say, Pnawn da, di chi'n siarad Cymraeg? I think that's what this next one's going to say. Yes, go as far as you can. Bore da. Yes, it's still bore da. Bore da is a good start. That will find out if people speak Welsh or not, and it'll show you whether you need to turn. That's what you tell people to do. Ask the question, do you speak Welsh? Bore da, say bore da. And that in itself will tell you straight away whether this person needs a service in Welsh or not. And if you did nothing else but embed that into everybody within your organization in the next couple of months, you'd be making a huge contribution. Knowing then where to turn for help, if the situation, somebody responds in Welsh and they're confused and they can't, everybody, yes, most people can speak a little bit of English, but there's a lot of people, especially when they're under stress, as we've heard from 2 or 3 people this morning, they struggle with it because Welsh is their language of choice. Welsh is the language that they are most comfortable in. And so therefore, you have to be able to know how to respond to them. Let's have a look at the next point. And you then, from this, need to create a process which is sustainable, which breathes life into itself and is self-sufficient in the round. I think that's the last one. This is the last one. Whose plan is this? Yes, it's the organization's plan, but yes, it's also an individual service unit's plan, but actually it's every individual that works in the organization's plan. It's an easy win, right? It's an easy win recognizing if somebody needs a Welsh language service. You don't have to speak Welsh. You just be aware of the fact that some people do, and everybody can do it, even if they can't, even if they're not even confident in saying bore da. At least they, hey, John, I think this chap is a Welsh speaker. Can you come and have a chat with him? That, then you're owning the plan, aren't you? Is it a corporate plan? Yes, it is. Is it by service unit? Yes, it is. Or is it a bit of both? Well, it's everything, isn't it? Next. And who needs to be part of this? As we said, everybody needs to be a part of it. Everybody needs to be aware of it. Some people will contribute more than others. There's others who speak Welsh but don't really have the confidence. But if you say, well, actually, you could be saving lives or you could be doing a huge good service to somebody just by saying, bore da, recognize they speak Welsh and finding a Welsh speaker, even if they're not confident doing it themselves. Over time, they will be. So everybody needs to be part of it. Does everybody understand it? Do they buy in? Well, there's all sorts of ways you can test on it. You can do secret shopping. You can do questionnaires. You can raise it in staff forums. You can go just down and sit with staff members and say, do you understand it? There's a number of different ways. Over time, you will change the culture of the organization. And I know this because we've done it at HIW. Next one. And then, of course, how do you govern all of this? How do you measure it? How do you make sure, how do you record, how do you make sure that you're doing all you possibly can? And again, it's up to you. You know what your governance rules are. You know how your governance works. Up to you to put into practice. There we go. Next. That is the end. I knew we were close. I should always put one in saying, Diolch, thank you. But I think we forgot that. My fault. Apologies. So that's us in a nutshell.
Well, diolch, thank you to Hugh and to Nia for that, and especially so, delivering in an unfamiliar setting without any control and knowing what's coming next on the PowerPoint for sure in front of you.
Thank goodness the lunch didn't come. That's all I can say.
Oh, thank you. Well, we've reached the point that, breakout rooms. I was thinking we could go towards breakouts, but I wonder if people have got questions that they want to ask any of the main speakers at this point. Because we've heard a lot there. I think there might be feedback or questions things that have come out of the presentations. They may also be challenges that you're facing in your organization that perhaps you'd like some other perspectives on. So
Can I just say a massive diolch o galon for all of the information that I've received bore yma this morning. It's been so useful. My name is Olivia. I'm a Welsh language skills tutor at the university, and what I do is I run modules that are optional for social work students but mandatory for allied health students in delivering Welsh in the workplace lessons. So it's just been so useful to learn how I can show and make that positive impact on why the Welsh language skill is so important to the fields that they're going into. And I've just learned so much as to how I can adapt different tactics and make sure that that passion that I've got for language is apparent in those students as well. So just a huge diolch o galon for this morning. Really appreciated it.
That's great. Diolch yn fawr. And are there any challenges that you're facing in your role that perhaps the panelists might have a perspective on, or putting you on the spot there? But...
No, that's okay. It's good. I think, to be honest, I found as well, especially the Gyrfa Cymru aspect of showing real life examples for the students as to why the Welsh language is so important. So when you mentioned that you had that parent newsletter going out to parents to showcase to students why the Welsh language is important to them, potentially something that I could reach out for is potentially figuring out a way to do a newsletter for undergraduate students and figuring out real life scenarios and different things that could inspire them on their careers and why the Welsh language is important. So anything to show real life examples to really touch base with it, because it always helps having an external body, re-emphasizing that message rather than just myself droning on about it again and again. It's nice to show the different sectors and all the different institutes that do value that as well, I think.
I didn't mention that all our newsletters are on the website.
Gwych. Diolch galon.
Os ti eisiau mynd i chwilio.
Byddai'n perffaith. Diolch o galon i chi, Rhian.
We relaunched the parent newsletter about 18 months ago. So all of those ones, because the previous ones, before we sort of reviewed it and relaunched it, they didn't meet the accessibility requirements that Fiona was talking about, because they were a PDF. They were done very differently. They were PDFs and they were just sent out, but now they are all on the website.
Gwych, byddai'n dyddiol iawn. Diolch galon i chi am hynny.
Diolch ti.
And just another point, Olivia, if you're looking for real life stories of Welsh language skills, we have a sister website, which is Working Wales, which is for people who are either looking for work, in work, or career changes. It's a campaign site by the Welsh Government. It's not our main information site, but there are a lot of real life stories there. And when you get the PowerPoint slides, one of the slides had a number of links that you can follow to look for specific Welsh language information.
Be so beneficial, mor buddiol. So diolch yn fawr i chi. Bydd o'n really handy gallu just taflu pob dim ar y Moodle pages rwan. So diolch galon i chi.
Feel free to ask questions, or if you're trying to find the raise hands tab, which you might be familiar with Teams, on Zoom it's under React, so which you'll get if you hover near the bottom of your screen, and if you click on React there's raise hand, but we can add questions to chat. I'd be interested in asking, how do you come across many staff who are resistant to the Welsh language, or you need to win over hearts and minds, and how do you do that? May not be a relevant question, but
well, I think as far as we're concerned, we're incredibly lucky, and we do have the holy grail at HIW in that the whole of the board and the whole of the exec absolutely buy into it. Half our board members are Welsh speakers, half our exec are Welsh speakers. All of the other exec members go to Welsh lessons. And that's a rare thing. But that is, and that is the holy grail for a lot of organizations, is getting the buy-in from the top. And we're so lucky to have that at HIW. But it's good because there's a culture there now which says we are a bilingual organization, so that when new members come in, one of the huge parts of the induction Nia did one a couple of weeks ago is the Welsh language is part of the induction process. And it explains to people why the Welsh language is so important in healthcare and delivery and that sort of thing. It's not enforced upon people, but we then find, because the nature of everything is such, because it's going on all around them, everybody else says, oh, I'd like to learn Welsh as well then. And we all know that if you can get somebody learning Welsh, and if they're ready to just receive something in Welsh and they say the odd bore da and everything, you're 95% of the way there. So we are incredibly lucky in that sense, in that we have that leadership. And so if there is resistance, I don't have to say anything. Generally get the director or the board member going having a quiet chat, and or even just leading by example and starting off meetings with bore da, croeso. Right, today we're going to talk about so-and-so, and we do, and we have quite a few people from England, senior directors, who are more than happy to come and say bore da, croeso in meetings and everything. Makes a massive difference.
Yeah, no,
Hugh mentioned leadership there, and I think that's an integral part of the jigsaw here, isn't it, in terms of bringing people along on that journey, as it were. We're very conscious of, if we are to move organisations along the continuum and to increase the use of Welsh in the workplace, but also making sure that organisations plan their workforce strategically in order to increase that capacity and to increasingly become a truly bilingual workplace and workforce, then you're going to need to take people on that journey with you. And that's been very much a feature of the work that Caris has been undertaking. And maybe Caris can come in here in terms of the model policies that we've developed. That's certainly a feature there, but also some of the work that we're doing at the moment in terms of that theory of change and what needs to happen within organisations to facilitate that change. And obviously leadership, bringing people along. You mentioned hearts and minds there, Alistair. That's very much a key narrative in this work. I don't know whether you want to come in there, Caris. Diolch.
Yeah, I think it's a lot to do with making it as relevant. So obviously you mentioned how the strategies are organisation wide, but it has to speak to the individuals as well that are carrying out this work day to day. And occasionally that might raise some concerns if they're not Welsh speakers, what that means for them realistically. And I think a lot of what you said there, Hugh, about just using what Welsh you have and knowing the difference that can make, and slowly but surely kind of raising that use is really important. So those messages and the way that we communicate with everyone within an organisation is really important, especially when you're coming from a perspective where you have to do it because it's the Welsh language standards, but then you know that's not enough, is it? You have to explain to people why it's important and how it relates to them day to day. I was just typing in the chat there as well. There's a lot of praise for the leading in bilingual Wales courses that Welsh Government Academy Cymru do, and their applications are open at the moment. Felly mae yna lot o ganmol i'r gwaith sydd yn digwydd a'r newid sydd yn digwydd wrth i bobl fynd ar y cyrsiau yna. So a lot of praise for the change that can happen within an organisation when key people go on that course. So that's worth having a look at and seeing. I can imagine they've been quite inundated with applications, I would have thought, but there's still time to apply.
Oh, diolch yn fawr. I just clicked on it actually, and no, on a fascinating. It's interesting, in listening to the talks, is lots of different things, resonated through them, and I know that I was reminded of, my landlord died recently, but he was a Welsh speaker from Anglesey. And I remembered a conversation. He'd had a stressful day, and I think the dog had run off, and he was trying to get it back. And so he wasn't quite, he hadn't connected, I'm an English speaker again. And again, he was just what naturally came from him was the Welsh language. And I was grateful really that I'd been brought up in Wales and I could understand the essence of what he was saying and respond. And, so it's sometimes stories, isn't it, that can help you to see the need for the language. So also reminded as well of some of the links between what you're doing at HCIW and in Gyrfa Cymru, in that we in an interview I observed recently, I'm a trainer and assessor. There was a young person who wanted to be a doctor. The backup plan was paramedic, but as part of the feedback with training was to help them to think about, well, what else is there in the health sector they were committed to that you could also explore? And it's great to see with Tregerfa or Caerphil, the opportunities to for Welsh speakers to find that sort of information in Welsh now. Diolch. Are there any other questions that people have or observations, Tim?
Hi, Alistair. Hi, everyone. Tim Opie here from the Welsh Local Government Association. So one of the roles that I have in my post is linking with the Wales Principal Youth Officers Group. So they're the strategic leads that oversee youth work in the local authorities. You may have seen I popped a point in the chat earlier, and it's around the fact that I think a lot of what we're talking about today is where young people engage with services in a formal way. But of course, for schools, for example, they're in school for 15 minutes of every waking hour, which means they're out of school for 45 minutes in learning environments and communities and such like. And they often Welsh speakers who are going to Welsh medium schools, for example, where they're using it all day, when they switch off from that environment and they're in their own safe spaces, for example, in youth work settings and sort of leisure spaces and letting their hair down a bit to chill out, they often don't use Welsh in those settings because they see it as a formal language in formal settings. I don't know whether I'm making a point or posing a question or just rhetorically, because it's a voluntary engagement with youth work, for example, it's not something that we could impose because they would just, those who didn't want it through Welsh would vote with their feet and go. There's also still those issues in regards to recruitment and retention in youth work, as there is everywhere else in the public sector for Welsh-speaking youth workers. So yeah, it's I suppose as much as we offer that, and I'm sure in the Commissioner's office you've looked into this. I've seen it in some reports recently. Sort of how do we encourage young people to use it when they're talking to themselves in relaxed spaces?
Yeah. Would someone like to pick up on that? Diolch, Tim.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, in a previous life, I did a lot of work with young offenders programs in West Wales, and one of the things of trying to make young people more aware of their role within their community was putting them in touch with older people. And one of the successes we had in the Swansea Valley, without giving too much away, where Welsh is probably the predominant language, certainly amongst the older generation, was encouraging the younger people to say Shwmae bore da to them, and that immediately built a bond. And I think it's trying to get that broader message across, that just a couple of words can immediately, give you an identity with somebody. And certainly that ended up, as it happened, with a lot of sort of videos and shot on phones. I mean, it was wonderful. Of old people's memories of the village in younger times and everything. And of course, the younger people then had this tremendous sense of feeling, of belonging to a community, being part of a community. And that community was predominantly a Welsh language one. So that's one way of encouraging young people to use the Welsh language in a community setting and make them more aware of the value of the Welsh language. It's only a small part of the jigsaw, I know, but something that has worked, I know.
I think my point to you, I accept that completely, and there's a lot of other good intergenerational work that goes on, but it's when young people are with young people. Not so much when they're engaging with other generations. It's when school finishes, they switch to English. Not all, don't get me wrong. In some communities, it's all Welsh or predominantly Welsh, but in some, when they're together in their own safe spaces and chilling out, as it were, they often revert to English.
Yeah, I mean, the FAW have done a lot of good work on this. Obviously, we know the FAW are very, very strongly supportive of the Welsh language, and they've tried to get, and I've been party to a couple of the sessions that they've done there, where they're trying to get coaches, certainly Welsh-speaking coaches, where they've got a mixed bilingual set of kids to use little bits of Welsh, just pnawn da, am ddiffynwr, goal, things, just a little bit of bits of Welsh like that, and it does encourage then more Welsh speaking to take part in those situations. It's little things. There's no one big brush solution, but it's just encouraging people in any sort of setting to just introduce the Welsh language as being a bit of fun, acceptable, and giving people a license to use it. And I think that's the message that needs to go through, rather than forcing it on people. As you say, people will vote with their feet if you try and force it, but just try and come from the side and just have a bit of fun with it and make it acceptable. It's great the way, the FAW Welsh is mainstreamed at Welsh international matches, because they get the Welsh language singers there, they get the Walgoch there, the Cymru, all of that sort of stuff. If we could get more maybe national sports organisations to take a similar attitude, that would encourage again a lot more young people maybe to be using the language. It's little things though, little things. It's giving people a license to use it, isn't it?
I think the situation or the circumstances that you've just described there, Tim, I think we're all very much aware of the challenge, and I'm not going to underestimate the size of that challenge. I think that's been something we've been aware of for a number of years. As a product of Welsh Medium Education in South East Wales, I know the dynamics, and I've got kids in Welsh Medium Education myself, and the challenge is a significant one. I think that's why it's important for us to provide as many opportunities for people to use the language outside of that formal educational context. And there's obviously good work happening, with different partners and stakeholders across Wales. I'd agree with what Hugh has said there in terms of those small little steps, albeit they are small. I think they have a role to play, but ultimately I think it is about providing those opportunities in contexts that are important to young people. I'm thinking about, Hugh mentioned sport there. To be honest with you, I was in the rugby yesterday. I was really pleased to see how visible the language was, perhaps in comparison to what it's been in years gone by. So there is progress being made there, but we've got to allow people to socialise and to undertake sporting activities through the medium of Welsh, and we've got the Urdd who do great work there. But I'm not going to sugarcoat the challenge. I think what you're describing there is a fair assessment, and there's significant work ahead if we're to make progress in that area.
I think it's about creating a Welsh environment, isn't it? It's and going back to your youth club example, if the youth workers are bilingual and the image of the youth service is a bilingual one, then you've got a better chance of making it more of a natural environment for the Welsh language to thrive. And I've got a personal anecdote, I suppose. My son played rugby, and there were twins who came to play rugby, and it was in quite a rural Welsh-speaking community, the rugby club. But they lived in a town outside of they went to an English medium school. Their parents were from, I don't know, northwest of England somewhere. I'm not sure where. So there was no Welsh spoken in the home. There was no Welsh spoken in school apart from the Welsh lessons that they were getting in school. So after a couple of years of playing rugby, one twin gave up and went to do something like kickboxing or something. But the other twin stayed at the rugby club and progressed through all the age groups and ended up playing for the first team. They're identical, and I confess, absolutely hopeless when it comes to identical twins. I can never tell them apart. So I never know which one I'm speaking to until I start speaking to them, because one of them sounds like he grew up with me in my home and speaks Welsh in the way that I would speak Welsh. The other one can't speak any Welsh at all, but he's learned all his Welsh at the rugby club because the language of the club is Welsh. And because he joined when he was young, he's just developed this Welsh language, and he's completely natural in it. He wants to go and be a police officer in a job where Welsh speakers are in demand. So I think it's all about the environment. It's not about putting people in a position saying, right, come on, let's speak Welsh now. It's about the holistic approach to the language. And I think that's really important. And that's, I think it's got to come more naturally, and not something that is imposed on people. And, I can see from my own personal experience that it does work. It can work. It doesn't always work, obviously. And, I think, some of the things that Hugh was described, I think backs that up really. And, you can't, it's all about the environment that you create. It's, it's not a language for the classroom. It's the language for life. And I think that's what we need to promote.
Oh, diolch yn fawr pawb. Time is our enemy as usual, and I think we're getting towards that point. I've learned a lot this morning. It's reminded me actually of I started with Careers Wales in 1987. In Carmarthenshire, but then moved on to the South Wales Valleys quite soon after. And again, talking about the culture of an organisation, I can see how it's a lot of little things to make Welsh, more natural and to and provide opportunities for people in the organisation. It's made a huge difference. David's appeared on the screen as well. Now, David's the Chief Executive of the Career Development Institute, and I asked him if he was happy to say a couple of words just before we finish. So, thank you, David.
Thanks, Alistair. Again, just want to say, dear to everyone, thank you. I'm not a Welsh speaker. I'm based in England, so apologies if that was terribly pronounced. But it's been a really fascinating session. I've learned a huge amount. And I think it's a really important part. So as a CDI, we try and work we work across the UK, but we try and work in the context of each of the home nations. And the Welsh language is an important part of the context within Wales. And I'm really delighted, that we've run the session. Alistair, well done for pulling it all together. Thank you to everyone who's spoken. It's been fascinating, and the discussion. It's been really interesting to hear not just what the kind of the direction is, the strategy and the requirements, but also what the opportunities are, the challenges, and the underlying reasons why it's so important in real examples of how it affects people's lives. So it's been fascinating, really, really good. And I shall hand over to Alistair to say diolch properly. So thank you.
Well, again, I'm someone who's gone through the Welsh, who's learned the Welsh language, through school. So diolch is how I would say it, which again, it will have to correct me. But yes, so thank you to all. Again, I think each of the speakers have brought something, really unique and helpful to the meeting. First of all, with commissioners setting the scene, for the strategy. For the strategy, and you can see then how everything that they spoke about is being put into practice in two different organisations that buy into the value of career development. So I struck with Gyrfa Cymru and Careers Wales just about how much is going on, and how many different strands there are to creating that culture that Welsh speakers can come to. Receive services in Welsh, and that staff can have the confidence to develop their Welsh language skills and start to use it as a main language or incidentally. And then finally to Hugh and to Nia, with just your anecdotes. Again, I think there are some of the forum where you could make a career, Hugh, in terms of as an orator, and in other ways. But again, so much going on, and again, I was struck again by how the culture of your organisation really just makes the development of the language a natural thing. So, diolch yn fawr pawb. We will have another forum topic, in March, which I'll be in touch with you all via email. But thank you all, and have a very good afternoon. We're just there now. Diolch.